In this learning unit you'll develop an understanding of the 4 dimensions of service management: organizations and people, information and technology, partners and suppliers, the value streams and processes. Value streams for service management. Processes. 3 external factors. It will be followed by a summary unit and a quiz. Organizations create value for its stakeholders through the provision and consumption of services. The ITIL SVS describes the ways in which the various components and activities of an organization work together to create this value. To achieve the desired outcomes and work as effectively as possible, organizations should consider all aspects of their resources, as none of these, when considered in isolation, are sufficient to produce the required outcomes. In practice, however, organizations often become too focused on one area of their initiatives and neglect the others. For example, technology solutions can be implemented without due care for the processes or people they are supposed to support. ITIL 4 defines the kinds of resources that allow an organization to create value. These resources have been grouped together into 4 groups or dimensions, referred to as organizations and people, information and technology, partners and suppliers, the value streams and processes. These 4 dimensions have not been listed in any order of priority. The 4 dimensions of service management support a holistic approach to service management, and are relevant to and impact upon all elements of the ITIL SVS. The 4 dimensions are constrained or influenced by several external factors like regulation, compliance, political, environmental. The PESEL model has been used to refer to external complaints. Failing to address all 4 dimensions properly may result in services becoming undeliverable, or not meeting expectations of quality or efficiency. For example, failing to consider the value streams and processes dimension holistically can lead to wasteful work, duplication of efforts, or worse, work that conflicts with what is being done elsewhere in the organization. Equally, ignoring the partners and suppliers dimension could mean that outsourced services are misaligned with the needs of the organization. The 4 dimensions do not have sharp boundaries and may overlap. They will sometimes interact in unpredictable ways depending on the level of complexity and uncertainty in which an organization operates. It is important to note that the 4 dimensions of service management apply to all services being managed as well as to the SVS in general. It is therefore essential that these perspectives should be considered for every service, and that each one should be addressed when managing and improving the SVS at all levels. The first dimension of service management is organizations and people. The organization and people dimension of a service covers roles and responsibilities, formal organizational structures, culture, and required staffing and competencies, all of which are related to the creation, delivery, and improvement of a service. It is important that roles, responsibilities, and systems of authority and communication are well defined. They need to support the overall strategy and operating model. When looking at this dimension in relation to the ITIL SVS, the focus should be on the same aspects, but in the context of the organization acting as a service provider. The effectiveness of an organization cannot be assured by a formally established structure or system of authority alone. The organization also needs a culture that supports its objectives, and the right level of capacity and competency among its workforce. The culture to support an organization too has multiple facets. Adopting the ITIL guiding principles can be a good starting point for establishing a healthy organizational culture. It is vital that the leaders of the organization champion and advocate values which motivate people to work in desirable ways. The way in which an organization carries out its work that creates shared values and attitudes, which over time are considered the organization's culture. The components of culture are shared value and attitudes, leaders champion and advocate values, communication, trust and transparency. People are a key element in this dimension. They could be customers, employees of suppliers, employees of the service provider, or any other stakeholder in the service relationship. Attention should be paid on skills and competencies of teams or individual members. Management and leadership styles. Communication and collaboration skills. Every person should have a clear understanding of the contribution towards creating value for the organization. It is important for people to understand the interfaces between the specializations and roles and those of others in the organization to ensure proper levels of collaboration and coordination. As practices evolve, people also need to update the skills and competencies. People are a key element in this dimension. Focus and attention is required for management and leadership styles, updating skills and competencies, communication and collaboration, broad knowledge plus deep specialization, clear understanding of the contribution in facilitating value creation, focus on value creation to break down silos. The second dimension of service management is information and technology, and applies both to service management and to the services being managed. This dimension, when applied to the SVS, includes the information and knowledge necessary for the management of services, as well as the technologies required. It also incorporates the relationships between different components of the SVS, such as the inputs and outputs of activities and practices. Detailed guidance on the role of information and technology in service management can be found in other ITIL publications. Service management increasingly benefits from developments in technology. The technologies that support service management include, but are not limited to, workflow management systems, knowledge bases, inventory systems, communication systems, analytical tools, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and other cognitive computing solutions are used at all levels, from strategic planning and portfolio optimization to system monitoring and user support. The use of mobile platforms, cloud solutions, remote collaboration tools, automated testing, and deployment solutions has become common practice among service providers. In the context of a specific IT service, this dimension includes the information created, managed, and used in the course of service provision and consumption. The specific information and technologies depend on the nature of the services being provided, and usually cover all levels of IT architecture. These include applications, databases, communication systems and their integrations. In many areas, IT services use the latest technology developments such as blockchain, artificial intelligence, and cognitive computing. These services provide a business differentiation potential to early adopters, especially in highly competitive industries. In relation to the information component of this dimension, organizations should consider the questions: what information is managed by the services? What supporting information and knowledge are needed to deliver and manage the services? How will the information and knowledge assets be protected, managed, archived, and disposed of? For many services, information management is the primary means of enabling customer value. Another key consideration in this dimension is how information is exchanged between different services and service components. The challenges of information management, such as those presented by security and regulatory compliance requirements, are also a focus of this dimension. For example, the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR) will influence its information management policies and practices. The criteria for optimizing information architecture needs to be done in the context of availability, reliability, accessibility, timelines, accuracy, relevance. When considering a technology for use in the planning, design, transition, or operation of a product or service, questions an organization may ask include compatibility with the current architecture of the organization and its customers, impact of emerging technologies, machine learning, AI and IoT, regulatory or other compliance issues, future viability, risk of aging technology versus emerging unproven technology, strategic alignment, adequate training to use technology, automation capabilities. Does this technology introduce new risks or constraints to the organization? Cloud computing, a model for enabling on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources that can be rapidly provided with minimal management effort or provider interaction. Key characteristics of cloud computing include on-demand availability, often self-service, network access, often internet access, resource pooling, often among multiple organizations, rapid elasticity, often automatic, measured service, often from service consumer's perspective. Cloud computing changes service architecture and the distribution of responsibilities between service consumers, service providers, and the partners. Its impact replaces infrastructure with a partner's cloud service, reconfigures need for ITSM expertise and resources, shifts focus of service monitoring from in-house infrastructure to a partner's services, lowers capital expenditures and introducing new operating expenditures, introduces higher requirements for network availability and security, introduces new security and compliance risks and requirements, provides users with opportunities to scale service consumption using self-service. Another important effect of cloud computing, resulting from the computing resources elasticity, is that the cloud infrastructure may enable significantly faster deployment of new and change services, thus supporting high-velocity service delivery. The ability to configure and deploy computing resources with the same speed as new applications is an important prerequisite for the success of DevOps and similar initiatives. This supports modern organizations in their need for faster time to market and digitalization of the services. Considering the influence of cloud computing, decisions about the use of this model needs to be done at the strategic level of the organization. The culture of an organization may have a significant impact on the technologies it chooses to use. Some organizations may have more of an interest in being at the cutting edge of technological advances than others. Equally, the culture of some organizations may be focused on a more traditional way of working. One company may be excited to take advantage of artificial intelligence technologies, while another may barely be ready for advanced data analysis tools. The third dimension of service management is partners and suppliers. The partners and suppliers dimension encompasses an organization's relationships with other organizations that are involved in the design, development, deployment, delivery, support, and/or continual improvement of services. It also incorporates contracts and other agreements between the organization and its partners or suppliers. Relationships between organizations may involve various levels of integration and formality. This ranges from formal contracts to flexible partnerships. The different types of relationships are service provider, service consumer relationships, organizations partner and supplier strategy. Factors that influence supplier strategies. Service integration and management. Every organization and every service depends to some extent on services provided by other organizations. The characteristics of them are: service partnerships, share common goals and risks, collaborate to achieve desired outcomes, goods and service supply, formal contracts, clear separation of responsibilities. Service integration and management involves the use of a specially established integrator to ensure that services relationships are properly coordinated. Service integration and management may be kept within the organization, but can also be delegated to a trusted partner. An organization's strategy when it comes to using partners and suppliers should be based on its goals, culture, and business environment. The aspects are strategic focus, corporate culture, resource scarcity, cost concerns, subject matter expertise, external constraints, demand patterns. Relationships between organizations may involve various levels of integration and formality. This ranges from formal contracts with clear separation of responsibilities to flexible partnerships, where parties share common goals and risks and collaborate to achieve desired outcomes. Some examples of relationships between organizations are shown in the table. Lean concepts of value stream mapping and value chain have become a powerful tool in businesses. The value stream mapping is a method for analyzing the current state and designing a future state for the series of events that take a product or service to its final stage with reduced wastes. A value stream focuses on areas of a firm that add value to a product or service. A value chain refers to all of the activities within a company. Value streams and processes define the activities, workflows, controls, and procedures needed to achieve agreed objectives. They comprise activities the organization undertakes, how activities are organized, how value creation is ensured for all stakeholders efficiently and effectively. Value stream, a series of steps an organization undertakes to create and deliver products and services to consumers. The value stream optimization may include process automation or adoption of emerging technologies and ways of work to gain efficiencies or enhance user experience. Process, a set of interrelated or interacting activities that transform inputs into outputs. Processes define the sequence of actions and the dependencies. It involves the steps such as input, activities, output. A well-defined process can improve productivity within and across an organization. The same structure of the value chain, value streams, processes, procedures, and work instructions applies to specific services to successfully create, deliver, and improve a service. Few questions need to be answered, such as: what is the generic delivery model for the service, and how does the service work? What are the value streams involved in delivering the agreed outputs of the service? Who or what performs the required service actions? Service providers do not operate in isolation. They are affected by many external factors and work in dynamic and complex environments. These can exhibit high degrees of volatility and uncertainty, and impose constraints on how the service provider can work. To analyze external factors affecting an organization, frameworks such as the PERSOL model are used. PERSOL is an acronym for political, economic, social, technological, legal, environmental. You should now be able to recall the 4 dimensions: organizations and people, information and technology, partners and suppliers, the value streams and processes. Recall the 4 dimensions perspectives which are relevant to the whole ITIL service value system. Have a grasp of the significance of cloud computing.